To align your root chakra, fear less, love more. To align your sacral chakra, complain less, appreciate more. To align your solar plexus chakra, watch less, do more. To align your heart chakra, judge less, accept more. To align your throat chakra, talk less, listen more. To align your third eye chakra, frown less, smile more. To align your crown chakra, think less, feel more. Hi everyone, Therese here with a new karma cards for the week. But first I want to ask you, how are you feeling? Because the energy in the atmosphere right now, I want to show you this. So this is the KP index, which shows the amount of geomagnetic activity coming in. And I know it's backwards, but it says it's at 4. It's at 4 for I can only see the next 3 days. But that's a pretty big jump. Usually it's at a 2, which is pretty stable or a calmer energy. So this means that there is a type of geomagnetic storm happening, and we can feel it in our energy field. Now, I just checked the Schumann resonance as well. Not a lot of activity happening there today, but the magnetic energy of the earth is strong. So you might feel, for example, I feel a little tiny bit nauseous, I feel very fluttery, got a lot of energy going on, and I think that it'll be interesting to see how I'm feeling over the next few days. This can shift. So I'm going to check back tomorrow. I'll probably post it. If there's a significant shift, I'm going to post it in my Telegram group, and we'll see if it goes up. Usually if it stays like this, I think we stabilize slightly or normalize to that energy. But yeah, if you're feeling that sort of like keyed up feeling, that could be that you're very sensitive to the magnetic energy happening around you. Oh, I wanted to tell you about a kind of crazy thing. It was kind of crazy, something that happened to me this week. It was subtle, but I had to share it with you. So I was talking to some friends about Dolores Cannon. She is amazing. She's an author. She is the originator of the quantum healing hypnosis technique. And her life work is just fascinating. So Dolores Cannon, check her out. One of the things that she's talked about are weird anomalies, weird little dimensional and timeline blips that she has recorded over time. And so I was telling some friends about some of her work, and I went to go look for a video to send a friend about her. And I just grabbed the first one that came up. I was like, that looks good. I sent it to my friend, but then I went and watched it just to see what the topic was about. And it was so random what I got. It was this lecture where she was sort of talking about all sorts of different things. And one of the topics she talked about was how we can walk through other dimensions. We can sort of cross over dimensions at any time and be on one timeline and another timeline and at the same time with other people. So here's the craziest part. It's not like we all shift. Sometimes one of us shifts. Sometimes a group of us shift. And yet we're having one experience and someone else is having another. And the dimensions, the best way I can ever describe them is that they're these transparent veils, and it looks like the hanging shower curtains at Bed Bath & Beyond, and you can kind of flip through the shower curtains and see them all. Well, the dimensions sort of are hanging side by side, all these alternate realities. And every once in a while, we can cross over inadvertently, not even realizing we're on another dimension or timeline. And it's our choices that we make that send us to these timelines. Now, we can do this intentionally by getting very clear on the choices we want to make and clearly trying to connect to timelines, but we can also do this very arbitrarily. And so Dolores was telling a story about 3 friends who had all agreed to tune into a radio program that goes all night long. And this is the radio program was the Art Bell Show, and when Dolores was alive, she was a guest on that show from time to time. So these 3 ladies tuned into the program, and this program apparently went all night long. And so each of the ladies decided they couldn't stay up that long, but they wanted to hear what was in the program. So they all decided to record the program and go to sleep. And the next morning, as the ladies woke up, they went to go hit play, and listen to the program. 2 of the 3 ladies found out that the program didn't play. It ended up being a sporting event. And so they were very confused and like, what happened? Where's this program, that I expected to hear? Why is it the sporting event? So one friend calls up the other and she's like, yeah, I got the same thing. So they call their third friend and she got the radio program. So somehow 2 out of the 3 ladies slipped into an alternate dimension where that program was canceled. And they called the radio show. This is the crazy part. They call the radio station and ask about what happened to the show. And they said, oh, we're not carrying that show anymore. It's canceled. And it was mystifying. But the third lady, she got the program, heard Dolores speak on the show. They all 3 had recordings so they could prove what had happened. And of course, in the one lady's timeline, the show is still on. So they brought this to Dolores to show her what had happened because she was, categorically tracking odd events like that. So that's the first part, that was the video I picked and that was the information I locked in on. Today, I was chatting with a friend and she was sharing a video and I watched the video and there was like a weird sentence that came up in the middle of the video which kind of like took me by surprise. So I went back and I texted with my friend and I was like, did you hear this odd sentence? Like the information was good, but this was weird. And she got back to me and she said, nope, that wasn't said. That's not what he said. This is what he said. We went back and forth and I kept going back to the recording and listening and I kept hearing it. I'm like, no. And so I time-stamped it and I was like, no, listen at this moment. This is what he says. And then I wrote down verbatim what I heard. She never heard that. And I realized, oh my God, we just had one of these moments where we were each on a different timeline where it was similar in that we could both see the recording, but slightly different because one person heard one thing and I heard another. And I just was like, wow, that's how subtle, by the way, dimensional shifts can be. So I don't know about you, but my brain's always looking for the obvious. I'm like looking for purple sky or, like half the houses are gone or retro looking decor, things that we'd be like, that's different, right? But I just wanted to share with you, dimensional shifts can be very minute. And the reason I bring this up is because my team has often had me talk about the fact that not everybody experiences the same reality. Now, because I'm friends with the other person and, we're more in an agree to disagree place, if it were ever to come to that, we'd be like, okay. And both of us have awareness that dimensional shifts occur. So we really boiled it down to, wow, that was a dimensional shift. But what it brought to my attention is how easy it is to disagree with someone else and vehemently because, one person experiences one reality and one experiences another. And my team is like, do you see why you can't say that there is one reality? You literally experience something. And what was interesting is on the timeline I experienced, my husband experienced it the same as me. He heard what I heard. So we were clearly hearing something, but it wasn't over here and the other timeline. And we were still able to communicate, right? So that's another point I want to make is that just because we're experiencing 2 different dimensions, it doesn't mean the 2 dimensions can't coexist or communicate with each other. And that's wild. I mean, that really breaks open the idea of what reality is and how some people, what we're seeing from time to time is people so upset and irritated that someone else isn't seeing what they see. But as long as we're firmly holding on to our perspective and insisting that it's the only one, that is what creates tension and conflict. Because hopefully what you can see from these few examples is that it is weirder. It's weirder out there than we realize. Things are not necessarily coherent from dimension to dimension. There's a lot of similarities, and yet we can all interact with each other. In fact, another version that Dolores shared of some kind of like dimensional shift, this one will blow your mind. She was talking about a woman who came to her event, but the woman had said that that morning before she came to the event, she really couldn't make a decision about whether she was going to go see Dolores speaking or she was going to go to the racetracks, to the horse racetracks, and go celebrate there with some people. And she could not, like in her brain, she had a really hard time deciding, and she finally decided to go to Dolores's event. Told all, they had the conference, she got to talk to her, and apparently after the conference, there was a banquet that was held for, people at the conference, but other people could come to it. It was sort of like a potluck or something that people were invited to. And these two men came in and they were like, "Oh my gosh, it's you." And the woman was like, "Hello?" And they were like, "Wow, it must have felt really good to win all that money." And the woman looked at these men like, "What? What are you talking about? I've been at this conference all day." And they're like, No, we saw you." And the woman is like, "Oh, you probably saw someone who looked like me." And they said, "No, we saw you. We sat next to you and you won, at the track." And she said, "Well, what was I wearing?" And they looked at her kind of funny and like, "The same thing you're wearing right now." Okay, so does that blow your mind or what? That when it comes to a point where there are two things that you want at the same time, and you feel that pull in you between one possibility or another, that there could potentially be a split and you do both. But where the dominant portion of your consciousness goes is the reality you jump into. So that woman's consciousness dominated into the going to see Dolores speak. A bigger portion of her went there, but she had a strong desire to do the other activity. And so it also occurred. And timelines sort of like split and came back together. I mean, wow. Wow. And I want you to think about that. I bet in fact, I know that this has happened to you at some point. How do you know? How do you know? I know because if you can picture the events that may have occurred, the choice you might have made, and watch that all the way out, happen all the way, you can see the other timeline. How about this one? And put it in the chat, put it in the comments if these kinds of events, or you have stories about this, because I find it it's incredibly fascinating. Our world is so much cooler and weirder than we realize sometimes. How about this one? I've had this one a lot. Near misses, right? Have you ever been in a situation like while driving where an accident almost happened, but at the last second, near miss? But in your mind, you saw the accident. It was like in that split second, you saw the whole accident. Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen that a couple times. I don't like it. It's not fun. But that is a reality split. In one reality, there's a near miss. In the other reality, there's a car accident. More of your consciousness jumped into the near miss, and therefore that's what you experienced. And yet the other one also played out. I mean, just my brain. Maybe it's all this magnetic energy, but oh my gosh. So I just had to share that with you because, as we're navigating through this time period, and it is getting more confusing all the time, more confusing. Now, there are agents of confusion, as I've talked about, but there's also weird anomalies, rifts in time and space, dimensional splits, choices that were made and not made. And so therefore, even the reality that you think is reality is a multiple reality situation. And so when we try to say, no, there's one, I mean, my team, that's that giggle I get is like my team laughing, because they were like, oh, if you guys only knew. This is why we have that veil, right? The veil of forgetting, and also the veil of confusion, because it is too much for our conscious mind to comprehend. I mean, it could paralyze us from being able to make choices if we could, perceive all of these timelines and dimensions playing out. These, if you could perceive the car accident and the near miss at the same time, that would make you feel, crazy, a little nuts, like you can't figure out where you're at. So we have these sort of, veils of forgetting and illusion over us to sort of protect the conscious mind, because it can only really follow one thread at a time. But every once in a while, we trip over the cosmic rug, if you will, and something gets uncovered, and we get to experience things like hearing things one way and another person hears it absolutely another. So I just had to share that with you. It was just a little fun, odd thing that happened, and I really delight in those. I hope you have some events happening for you, or it gives you an aha into something weird you may have experienced in your own life at some point. Okay, let's do karma cards for this week. So if you're new to karma cards, here's how we play. There are 3 decks: planets, signs of the zodiac, and houses of astrology. I've already asked my team, what message do you have for us this week? And I have 2 sets of answers, one in red, which are action, and one in blue, which are outcome. And the way that you play is you tune in intuitively and decide, what do you need this week? Are you needing action-related answers? Choose red. Outcome-related answers? Choose blue. Or you can always choose both, which some people say they choose purple. While you're deciding, here is the timing for this reading. This reading is for today, August 25th through September 1st. And the flavor of this reading, we have Dreamy Neptune. Neptune, which is a really interesting topic that I've been learning more about, how Neptune works. And for those who are at the last full moon spirit circle, remember what I told you about Neptune and reversals, okay? So Neptune, dreamy and inspiring or inspirational, sometimes in its negative light, a little delusional, like missing the point. In Gemini, the communicator, the thinking of the local mind, right? What's in front of me? What do I have to deal with? And communicating that. In the 7th house, which is partnership and relationship. So this is the first house of the external world, where the journey goes from inside to outside, and we start to connect with others. So for those who are choosing action, your spiritual action is to inspire others with what you want to be known diplomatically. I feel like this kind of taps into like what I was just talking about with the dimensions and things like that. So diplomatically is the key word here. So you want to share your story and your perspective. That's what part of what you're here for, and part of what others are here to receive from you is what is your take on it. Diplomatically is just simply pointing out that while you're acknowledging that this is my perspective, this is what I see and what I'm experiencing, that we're acknowledging and holding the fact that others have a different perspective. They may have different perspectives. And so we want to learn how to share what we're experiencing without shutting anyone else down. And when we do that, we have clean, open communication. Mental action at this time. Be prepared to sacrifice for what is believed about relationships. Okay, again, the word sacrifice comes up a lot with Neptune. It's a very spiritual card, but in spiritual terms, sacrifice means to let go in order to receive. So it's sort of like if you've got a rock in your hand and someone's trying to give you some food or something like that, right? They want to give you something. You have to let go of the rock to receive. I know you have two hands, but just for the sake of this metaphor, okay, you have two rocks in your hands. You're going to have to put them down. Sorry, to get the food. So be prepared to let go of what is believed about relationships. Okay, so again, we're being asked more and more to do this mental cleanup inventory. What do I think about? What do I believe about? What does this mean to me? We're supposed to understand our own operational system, try to understand how we associate with different words, different topics, different ideas. First, so that we can understand our perception. And second, so that we can realize that that's what it is. It's a perception. It might not be the whole truth, right? So whatever you think about relationships or relating to others right now is only part of the truth. There is more there. And if you want to receive more, you're going to have to let go of what you're holding. Now, this doesn't mean you have to forget it or it's not a part of you. It's just not so tightly held, so that you can make space for more information to come through. Physical action at this time. Yielding is the only way to use the quickest way and get a fair deal. Yielding is the only way to use the quickest way and get a fair deal. So part of this is like surrendering. And again, it's like, there's a lot of energy for fight and tension. And we're also dealing with this inside of ourselves too. So as we're being asked to look deeper into ourselves all the time, right now we're in this corridor of 6 planets in retrograde. This is all this pointed inward energy. So again, it's like yield to what you receive. What you find. To get a fair deal. I was just talking with someone this morning about, when we're trying to manifest what we want, many times we're using positive energy or intention. We're trying to wash over like that. That's how I'm going to think now. Positive, positive, positive. And it's almost sometimes like a bulldozing action. Like, nope, got to think positive, got to think about the future that I want. And these things are true. You do need positivity. You do need to focus on the future you want. However, at the same time, as you're trying to do that work, naturally what will come up are the things in you that aren't a match. And it's not coming up necessarily to stop us, although we can kind of perceive it as that and therefore try to suppress, nope, not going to think that. I'm not going to think about my lack thoughts or fear, right? You can't change what you don't accept. And so when things like that come up, when the negative comes up, rather than trying to fight or push or resist against it, again, we're being asked to, and this is the Neptunian part, especially those at the spirit circle, they'll understand this, lean in, love on it. Like, oh, you're operating. I see you because I'm trying to invoke this type of energy, but you come up. And so if you want to, you want to become the martial arts master in this energy, whereas you're absorbing the blow to redirect the energy. So instead of trying to push, or resist the blow, you take it in. Meaning if you're trying to create abundance, but you feel lack, instead of going, no lack, no, you can't, I'm abundant, right? That's resistance. Instead it was like, okay, I still feel lack here. Or I'm going to sit with this feeling. What are you? What are you still here for? What do you need to tell me? That's absorb the blow. And then as you get information, redirecting the energy out towards abundance. It's very different, really. We're not really taught that. We have to learn this. It's a much gentler technique, and many times, our ego has things to teach us, even though we don't want to live in that place. We do want to learn what's operating there, why it's there, why is this a deeply held belief, why do I believe in this more than that, why do I believe in my negatives more than my positives, and so on. These things can be taught to us, and we can learn to redirect that energy, but a part of it is to take it in, and that's what this card is saying right now. All right, so now let's look at outcomes for Neptune and Gemini in the 7th house of relationships. The spiritual outcome at this time is the idealization of information to explain balance. So again, it's sort of exalting. Idealization is raising up to the highest. The idea of information, trying to understand to explain balance. So possibly what could happen right at this time is just taking it in as like, this is the highest standard of understanding, is to learn to absorb the blow and not resist, right? So we can do that to ourselves. And that's just kind of what's happening at this time. Whatever's coming through information-wise that's resonant for you is going to be set up to this high ideal. That's how I should behave. I feel like this is coming forward just to ask us to also pay attention to that. It's not bad or wrong. It's more like be conscious, pay attention, be mindful. What did you just do there? What was your reaction to that? If that sounds exhausting to you, I understand. And it can be. And the trick is just accepting. My team's like, bing, bing. Accepting it all. I understand and I accept. Okay. The mental outcome at this time. Confusion regarding communication about cooperation. Beautiful. I feel like that whole fun thing I brought up at the beginning of this karma cards about the dimensions, energy. I feel like that's a perfect example of what confusion regarding communication for cooperation looks like. It's so easy to become defensive of our perception. Because it's it is your reality. It is. And yet, there is more than one. And if we can learn to become curious about it, I feel like that helps us get more into cooperation. Because rather than trying to, stop, shut down, cut off anything, we're going, this is real. And this is also real. Right? Like I'm trying to get my head around that. That's going to keep us closer to cooperation. It is tricky though. I will say that, between my friend and I, it took a second. I was obstinate. I'm like, no, this is what, like, look, he said this. I was pretty obstinate. And she also was like, no, you misunderstand. And that is natural because again, we're still thinking pretty linearly. And that's what the brain needs to do to have a sense of sanity. That's okay. So, don't be down on yourself if this is hard. This is not elementary level understanding. This is higher understanding. And that's where our consciousness is going. So we are capable of doing this. And more stuff like that will be brought to our awareness so that we can practice using this higher consciousness. At the same time, it is kind of like going from, grade school to high school, that kind of shift in energy and the disorientation. It's a perfect match to this sort of feeling. So again, while you can grok it and you can, it will be confusing. You might not be ready to tackle it yet until you get a moment where you step back and you're like, wait a minute. I remember in that video Therese said, and then I went and watched the Dolores Cannon one, and yeah, now I kind of see that this can happen, right? So it takes a moment. I feel like my team had prepped me earlier in the week by watching that video clip of Dolores for this moment. It was like I was given the awareness of, remember, this is real, and then boom, the experience. Took me a second to really grok it though. And I feel like that is kind of what we're going to see more. Example, experience, understanding. All right, the physical action at this time. Sacrifice resulting from the fluctuations of your partner. So again, Sacrifice being a letting go, right? Letting go, resulting from the fluctuations of your partner. So again, we're all on these individual journeys together. We're all growing, but we're not doing the same tasks at the same time. It's just we're promised that we're all growing at the same time. So this is where things get tricky because, again, I just want to keep reminding you that our paths aren't the same. They're like, like someone goes over here, but you're going straight and they're over there. But we're all growing at this. The theme is growth. The paths are different. And again, this can create these fluctuations in relationships, friendships, families, lovers, marriages, whatever, partnerships, whatever it is. We're all fluctuating. And I know for me, especially in the past, I was really nervous about people I was close to fluctuating away from what I perceived was the path forward. That freaked me out for a while. I'm getting the hang of it now, mostly because my team keeps making me talk about it and helping me perceive it better. But for a while, that really did throw me off. I was like, I'm alone and now I'm confused and I'm not sure. And that is part of the path. There are parts we walk alone or we perceive we're alone while people fluctuate and go different directions around us. This is not to something to be afraid of, and it's not something that we have to control or change or anything. It's mostly awareness. Again, my team's like bing, mostly awareness that happens. And when they talk about sacrifice or letting go, I think it's that, I can't do this. I'm not going to be able to do that part with you, or, you're not coming with me here. Okay, I have to let go of the idea that you're coming with me on this part. Like maybe I lost some people when I started talking about the, dimensional splitting and the stuff like that. That's okay. Right? In the past, there's a part of me that would have been like, no, you come with me, understand this with me. Now what I understand is that's my experience of reality. I love it. It's weird and it's cool. But that might not be everyone's experience. In fact, that might be enough of a reason for someone to be like, she's weird, click, turn it off. That's okay. And we're all going to do this. Here's the thing that they keep showing me that does give me a sense of peace is that, when we fluctuate away, it's only because we're going to come back at some point, right? So that sense of aloneness or the only one, ... whatever that is a temporary state. Eventually we come around again, and the more that we can experience that, the more we're okay with that, the easier it is to navigate through those moments where we perceive we're in the woods by ourselves. Eventually we find our friends again. And so with that, even though it's going to be kind of kind of an interesting week, I hope that you know that no matter what, love is always with you and love is holding us all. And I so appreciate your love and energy, and thank you to people who have reached out and just checked in. You guys are the best. I so appreciate you. And I hope that these videos help you. I hope they're entertaining, but I also hope that they're helping you just feel more confident on your own path. You're doing a great job. Keep listening to your heart, and you'll always be heading towards your destiny. Thank you for watching. Subscribe now and hit the notification bell so that you know the next time I release a new video. Until then, stay magical.